Good morning, everyone. Well, we know we have a great microphone system, I'll tell you that. Wow. Everybody glad to be warm? What a day, what a day. My name is Jay Hershenson, and I am Senior Vice Chancellor for University Relations and Secretary of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. Welcome to the CUNY Graduate Center, which is the home of most of CUNY's doctoral programs. I do want to begin by saying that you're going to have to forgive me because I am not used to being in a room with President Arthur Rice without at least 500 members of the CUNY family and dozens of state and city officials in celebration of Arthur receiving the City University of New York 2015 Educational Leadership Award. Let's give her a big round of applause. I make that reference because we had a huge luncheon in Albany at the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus at which Arthur was honored by the Chancellor of the University, and we did so on Valentine's Day, which was very, very appropriate. Now, we are here to celebrate and then talk about the issues relating to the new Parents' Guide to STEM, which is an invaluable new publication aimed at helping parents better understand the 21st century workplace in which children will make their way. I do want to point out that although New York's basketball teams are not in good shape this year, this is a subject where we need a full-court press. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics says that by 2022, 7 years from now, STEM-related companies will need more than 9 million employees. That's 1 million more than in 2012. Their wages are already higher than the median, and they're growing faster than average. Some of these fields require an associate degree, but the best-paying jobs require at least a bachelor's degree, certainly on an entry level. So it's important for even strictly economic reasons for parents to guide interested youngsters into high school, community colleges, and senior colleges that can best prepare them. And of course, it's for their future, but in reality, it is for our nation's future. In New York, STEM careers are growing 2.5 times faster than those in any other field. Recognizing this trend, last year, the state of New York created the STEM Incentive Program. It provides a full scholarship to CUNY or SUNY college students who major in STEM if they rank in the top 10% of their high school class and are willing to remain in New York for 5 years. That's one of the many, many programs that is detailed in the Parents' Guide. Last fall, CUNY welcomed the first 80 students who are taking advantage of this terrific program at our colleges. Over the past decade, CUNY has seen a steady rise in STEM majors to about 39,000 students in fall 2013. There's been many, many efforts. I know in particular we participated with U.S. News & World Report and the Daily News and many, many sponsors on STEM conferences over the years, and that's part of the strategy to help get the word out. The majors at CUNY who are STEM accounted for 18% of all students who had declared majors at that point. There is some positive news about the racial balance in the STEM fields at CUNY. Each of the major groups, Asian, Black, Hispanic, and White, accounted for about a quarter of the STEM enrollment, and so that's encouraging. And I do want to indicate that CUNY has a program called College Now, where there are 20,000 high school students who participate in programs for accelerated credit, where they get some additional help and support in the high schools, and particularly in the summer, we've made a special effort to provide lab work and field work in computing, robotics, geology, and engineering. You should know that next Sunday, March 1st, CUNY and the public schools will sponsor the New York City Science and Engineering Fair, which is the city's largest research competition for high school students. So those are just a few examples, all of which are cited in the Parents' Guide that the New York Urban League has worked so hard to put together. But they are just a few examples of many, many resources and programs and activities that are available and that parents in our city need to know about. You know, we all know that information is power. And if you don't have access to that information, there is no way you're going to be able to transmit it to your family, and in particular to young people who should know that there is support and there is opportunity available for you. So with the support of our public officials, representatives of the private sector, and our community partners and those in the media with great vision, the story of STEM and its importance really needs to get out. I just want to point out our great partnership with Commissioner Bill Chung of Youth Services Agency, a CUNY graduate, and a great friend who works so closely with us, aimed at helping young people to learn as much as they can about these opportunities. So I'm going to now introduce the person for whom we all came here today for, and that's the wonderful president and CEO of the New York Urban League, Arva Rice.
Thank you so much, Jay, for that wonderful introduction and for the beautiful tribute and award that I received from the Chancellor, the Educational Leadership Award, as Jay mentioned, up in Albany on Valentine's Day. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Thank you for coming out in the cold and on this brisk morning. I feel like it's almost Old Home Week as I look out at the group and I see folks who we partnered with on our very first STEM efforts, old staff members, current staff members, and partners that are all joined here in celebration of what we think is going to be a really terrific opportunity for the young people in our city to become more engaged in what we really feel like is a STEM revolution. I wanted to just speak briefly a little bit about how we came to this place and space. Number one, it is because of the partnership, the wonderful, amazing partnership that we have with CUNY, so we want to thank them so much for their leadership and for helping to make this guide possible, working with U.S. News and Daily News and providing really the content and working in partnership in order to help to make this guide possible. And then you need to make sure that you're working directly in community, and we have a way to make sure that that gets out. And so working with the Department of Youth and Community Development and Department of Education has been so critical to helping to make this effort possible. I wanted to answer two questions this morning, and that is why the New York Urban League, why we thought to take on this project, and why what it is that we hope to accomplish. And so why the New York Urban League was interested in the idea of putting together a parent's guide to STEM. As many of you know, the Urban League is a 95-year-old civil rights organization. And I recently had the opportunity, I was digging through some files and found an old speech that was written by the original president of the Urban League, Mr. John Hubert, who started the Urban League in 1919, and he had written this document called The Story of the Urban League. And he talked about how at that time African Americans were really invisible, and so he wanted to be able to bring them to light by showing what were the conditions in which African Americans lived in the 5 boroughs. And one of the things that they found out was that even though they were living in really overcrowded conditions, people living really on top of each other in tenement houses, and no one was allowed to go to fresh air camps. The young people were not allowed to ever really go out and have a summer experience. And so the Urban League dedicated itself for 3 decades to creating fresh air camps. And once those fresh air camps became integrated, the Urban League work was done and they went on to the next thing. Well, we're here 95 years later recognizing that there is a barrier within science, technology, engineering, and math. And so our goal is to bring out what's been invisible, to heighten awareness by being able to create a guide to underscore and to highlight the trends that leave African Americans and many girls outside of the space and place, and to be able to highlight some of the great programs that already exist. And we'll keep doing this work until we're done, and then we'll move on to the next challenge. But what we are hoping to do with the Parents Guide is to not only get out a piece of papers that have a written description of some of the wonderful programming that's happening throughout the city, but is really to encourage conversations, to talk to parents and caregivers, and to realize that as much as your child can be the user of technology, if they can play that game, if they can look up the weather, if they can use their computer and they can use their cell phone, that they can become the creators of it as well. That we can not only identify problems, but that we can become the problem solvers. And working with the Urban League, particularly with our Next Academy, our summer programming, it has been transformative to see the young women and the young men to be able to sit there struggling, trying to put together the strings in order to put together their coding. And then when it all comes together and they put in what they want the computer to do, and it comes back. I remember one girl who looked at us and she said, "You know what, Ms. Rice? I feel smart." And so that's what this work is about, is helping more and more young people to feel smart, because they can figure it out, they can break the code, and we hope that this guide and this conversations, the workshops that will follow, will help to make that happen. So thank you all so very much for coming, and I want to introduce you to our first speaker, who is critical for us in having to been able to put together this guide. Time Warner Cable has been a partner of the Urban League probably since the beginning of this journey. I went to them and I said, I would love for you all to be the sponsors of our Girls and Boys Empowerment Days, days where we send over 200 young people out into the world to find out about different careers, and they spend that day. And Time Warner Cable said, sure, we would love to be a sponsor of that day. We just want the theme to be around science, technology, engineering, and math. And I have to tell you, at the time, I was like, oh, okay, if we have to. Because I'm really more of an English person, I'm more of a history person, and that was the beginning of it. And focusing that day on science, technology, engineering, and math, first of all, the young people loved it. We were able to focus in on technology. It opened up my world. I came away from it like, yes, I'm now a STEM girl. So it has been wonderful, this partnership with Time Warner. I want to introduce you to Jim Gordon. He's the Group Vice President of Corporate Brand and Reputation at Time Warner Cable, and he's responsible for overseeing corporate and social responsibility. And what I think is really terrific about Jim's title is that he's Vice President of Corporate Brand and Reputation. And so to be in charge of the reputation of the company is a really big job. But I think he's doing a terrific job of it, because when we think about Time Warner, we think about Connect a Million Minds. We think about their commitment, not only to make sure that we get our cable service delivered, but that we know that young people that individuals have great working wage jobs, and that we're also encouraging young people to be involved in technology. So with that said, I want to introduce you all to Mr. Jim Gordon.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us, and Arva, thank you for the wonderful introduction. I want to be clear about something, though. Corporate brand and reputation in our world means all of the fun things that we do as a company. So all of the community investment work and the work that we're doing here in New York and around the country in 29 states is really what we're focused on. You know, Arva talked about our partnership with the New York Urban League, and what I love about this partnership is that it's growing all the time, and it's getting stronger and it's getting better. And certainly we see and we want the benefits to flow into the communities, into the families, and into the students. But our own employees are benefiting from these opportunities where they get to volunteer and they get to demonstrate the work that they're doing. So we're very excited about Empowerment Days. We have one coming up next week for young women. We're excited about Next Academy, the summer program, and we're very excited about the STEM Guide. And, you know, I think we join many other companies and colleagues that are in the room here today who are on a mission to take what's on those pages and bring that to life for families and students, not only here in New York, but around the country, because we see terrific opportunity in the STEM space. For Time Warner Cable, STEM and diversity are part of our pillars of corporate social responsibility, and we take them very seriously. When it comes to STEM, we made a 5-year commitment to Connect a Million Minds. It was a $100 million commitment of cash and in-kind services to help inspire and close the inspiration gap by using our resources and creating partnerships like we've done with the New York Urban League around the country, again, to take STEM from being a boring, not-so-fun area for students and make it fun and entertaining, and show them that there are a lot of different ways that you can be in STEM. And through programs like this, we're able to, again, use our employees and showcase what kind of STEM jobs we have. So in closing the inspiration gap, on any given day, our company has hundreds of jobs that are STEM-related that are available. And so it's a little bit self-serving that we want to hire some of the students that we're engaging. But we also know that for the betterment of the country, raising the awareness of STEM and STEM education is so critical. We find that hands-on STEM particularly in the after-school space, is a sweet spot for us. It's where we can really use our resources of the company and affect good change. And so, again, the partnership that we have here is one that demonstrates that. You know, our 5-year STEM program, Connect a Million Minds, has really been a terrific learning process for us. And I'm going to be very candid with you. We have a lot to learn. We're in year 5, and we connected the million minds that we committed to. We exceeded the $100 million by almost $100 million, and we're still going. But we've really only just begun. And what we know in the work that we've done is that the inspiration gap is still there. We're working with a lot of other companies to help close that, but we also know that we need to reach further into diverse audiences to help them see and to demonstrate that there are terrific opportunities, not only at our company, but at many companies. So we're really pleased to be part of this guide because we know that it's going to flow through the community. I told Arva I'm going to take a stack and I'm going to distribute them on my walk back to the office today. We hope that several of you will join me in that journey. And we just want to congratulate ARVA and the New York Urban League and certainly our other member partners that are here today. We're so pleased to continue to build this partnership, and we look forward to continuing that. So thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
I am excited to let you all know that we have one addition to the agenda today. Michael Simas from Partnership for New York City is going to be joining us, and I'm really excited that he agreed to come and speak. He's replacing Kathy Wild, who's the president and CEO, but I thought it was really important that we hear a little bit from the partnership because the partnership is made up of a consortium of some of the most powerful corporations throughout the city. And the fact that they are so concerned not only about education but about STEM, I think is a real tribute to that organization. And I think it was really important that we hear their perspective. The New York Urban League has an educational policy committee, and I believe its co-chair, Ramik Williams, is here somewhere. But in our education policy committee, we were looking at what are some of the issues and concerns around education throughout the city. And so one of the things that we did was we took out the partnership's blueprint. And so it was interesting for the members of our community to look at how the community, the issues and concerns that we have as a community, how the business sector looks at them, and to look in to see how they're complementary. And so I'm so happy that Michael's here to talk to us a little bit about the work of the partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good morning, and a special thanks to ARVA and the Urban League, and congratulations for putting this together, Bill and Jay for hosting us here today in the panel. This is terrific. So I wanted to give a few points this morning. Data can be boring sometimes. I argue with our research folks all the time about making it less boring, but in this case, it's actually compelling when we look at what we're talking about here today. STEM's critically important to the city's economy moving forward. We've got 170,000 STEM jobs in the city right now. It's about 4% of the city's total employment, and it's a growing piece. So we're seeing 15% growth over the last 5 years in STEM jobs, about 9% in non-STEM jobs in the city. STEM workers are employed by companies of all types: financial services, technology firms, professional services companies. All of the verticals that we think about in New York are hiring tech employees from the STEM field. The next thing, STEM jobs pay significantly more than non-STEM jobs. The median wage in New York City for a STEM job is $44 an hour. That's significant. The non-STEM median wage is $27 an hour. So big difference in the wage rates for these careers. And 90% of the STEM jobs in New York City pay more than that $27 median wage. We've got a serious shortage of local STEM talent and global STEM talent thanks to our lack of an immigration policy here in New York. Employers are desperate for these positions. There are currently, as of today, 19,000 unfilled STEM jobs in New York City by our last count a couple of days ago. 4% of all filled jobs in New York are in STEM fields, but 18% of job openings are in those STEM fields. So you can see the difference of what we had in the past and the growth projections moving forward and what's open. It's STEM. The public school system is not doing the best job at providing the STEM talent we need. We're working on fixing those problems today with the material we're putting out to the public, making people informed. We're working with the city closely and appreciate Commissioner Chung being here today on career and technical education and a couple of other areas where we think we can engage kids in this space as well. Nearly half of the city's STEM workforce currently is foreign-born. So we're not harvesting the local talent we need. The pipeline's just not there to prepare local kids for the jobs that exist in these job openings. Not all STEM jobs, Jay mentioned this, require a 4-year degree. A lot of them require an associate's degree. You can get in the door coming out of a P-TECH model or different programs that we're looking at the city level now without much college debt, and you can get a job in this space. And again, these are high-paying, terrific jobs. And even for STEM students who don't plan to pursue careers in the tech field, these jobs, you can go anywhere with them. We're running programs in financial services, in fintech, in digital health, the healthcare industry in New York, and in fashion tech. We're connecting entrepreneurs with these historic industry verticals here in New York. We're seeing a ton of activity, a ton of venture investment following on to these programs, and it's really driving entrepreneurial growth that feeds the business of New York, which are these verticals in financial services, healthcare, while tech continues to grow at a really fast rate, and William's here from Google supporting that growth. Our traditional industries are also supporting that growth as they seek to grow more efficient and develop new technology that benefits consumers at the same time. So in summary, STEM's critical to the city's economy. There's nothing more important right now. It's our growth trajectory moving forward. STEM jobs pay much more than non-STEM jobs. We're right to be focusing on them and telling people about them. We've got a shortage of this talent. There's a huge opportunity for New York moving forward to fill these jobs where we've got gaps and pay these higher wages. And this is just the beginning. If we can fix this workforce problem and the pipeline problem that we see today with this gap in openings, we've got a great trajectory to grow this talent and grow the jobs that New York's looking to fill over the coming decades, as we've seen in the past. So thanks, everybody. I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has any, here or after. But appreciate being here today, and thanks again, Arva, for putting this together.
Thank you so much. So if I can have the panelists, yes, come on up to the stage. And we will go ahead and get started. We are so excited to have Ben Chapman, who's going to be moderating this conversation with us. Ben is a reporter at the Daily News and covers education. Yeah, give the Daily News a round of applause. He's here.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
We've had a last-minute adjustment here. Our parent from our next academy is running late, and so we're excited to have the coordinator of our education program at the New York Urban League, Tiana McFarland, who's going to pitch in and talk on behalf of the parents that we work with this year. So thank you so much, Tiana, for pitch hitting for us. And so we'll have Ben walk up in just a moment.
Hello. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming, and thank you to the Urban League and everybody for collaborating on this project and for inviting me to come moderate the panel. My name is Ben Chapman. I cover education for the Daily News. I write extensively on STEM education, and some of the material in the guide that was just published was culled from some of my articles. So, yeah, there we are. So we're going to talk about STEM, the importance of ensuring a diverse population in these emerging industries with a panel here. And we have first Bill Chong. He's a commissioner of the Department of Youth and Community Development, which basically runs the city's after-school programs. And then we have William Floyd. He's the Director of External Affairs for Google for New York State. And then we have Arva, the head of the Urban League. And then we have Tiana McFarland. She's the Director of Education for the Urban League, I'm told. And then last we have Debbie from the Education Department. Debbie's title, she has a great Education Department title. She is the Deputy Executive Director of Strategy and Innovation in the Office of Post-Secondary Readiness. at the New York City Department of Education. That's Debbie Marcus. So basically what that means is she's like, my understanding is that she's maybe second in command of designing programs that prepare kids for college and careers. So there we are. So if I'd like to open it up, maybe just going down the line, starting with Bill, to talk a little bit about some of the most exciting things that you're working on in STEM, and you know, anything that you have going that would speak to the issue that we're tackling this morning, which is diversity in STEM and how to promote that.
Well, let me start by saying that I think this room, I have fond memories of this room. I was mentioning to William that a decade ago, in 2005, when the city started redesigning its after-school programs to move from a very scattered, disconnected system to a more comprehensive system that offered a range of services to young people, the kickoff meeting for the first round of nonprofits that got contracts was in this room. So it's kind of like, for me, coming full circle. I think STEM has always been a core part of the design of the after-school programs. The biggest challenge, and having been the deputy commissioner in the previous administration, the biggest challenge and the game changer I think that Mayor de Blasio has brought is money and partnership. You know, and money can make a big difference. We started a partnership about 5 or 6 years ago with the New York Academy of Sciences. They went ahead and raised the money, and the idea was quite simple: recruit doctoral and graduate students in the sciences to teach science, STEM curriculum in after-school programs. And you know, it's relatively small scale, maybe 30 or 40 programs, and because the city didn't have the funding, quite frankly, to take it to full scale. The mayor, by expanding the after-school system, particularly for middle school kids, has increased the number of programs. We added 271 middle school programs last fall. And more importantly, we increased the investment per young person from $2,100 to $3,000. So by doing that, we can hire these graduate students and these doctoral students to teach. So instead of getting a stipend, they get a salary. And that makes a huge difference in the quality of programs. So there are a couple of partnerships I want to talk about, and William will talk a little bit more about it. In the Daily News, thankfully, did a great story last week. We started a partnership last month, or 2 months ago, with Google to begin to use their CS First coding curriculum to test it in 30 programs across the city. To teach young people between the ages of 9 and 14 the basics of computer coding, and to begin to start them on the path of computer sciences, and to hopefully graduate them to a more sophisticated curriculum. So we're doing it in 30 programs. We're evaluating it. We're trying to decide whether you really have to have a background in this as a staff person, whether that impacts the quality. How do you engage young people? Because not every young person wants to learn how to code. The thing that we've learned about after-school programming is to expose young people to a range of different things, whether it's the arts, whether it's sports, whether it's theater, whether it's music. And so science is a big part of that, but we know for a young person in middle school especially, the diversity of experience is important. So we're evaluating that, and hopefully once the evaluation is completed, we can go to scale starting next year. We have at least 857 programs. Actually, we're bringing on 50 more. So probably close to 900 programs will make this available, and then hopefully it'll, again, take root. The second partnership I want to talk about is something we started last year with the Economic Development Corporation in our employment programs. Because at the end of the day, this is not only about exposing young people to different things, but also beginning to lay career paths for them. So last year, with the Economic Development Corporation, we partnered with a group called the Network to Teach Entrepreneurship. They had a partnership, they had a program called Generation Technology. And all summer long, 40 young people got paid to learn how to code. And they broke into small teams to come up with the best youth app possible. And then they had a competition, and a panel of tech companies judged the winner, and the winner got a $5,000 capital investment to launch their app. So last year, the group that won was a group called Opus, helping young people find jobs in their community. And I went to the boot camp last summer, and so they did a SWOT analysis, and so they listed strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. And the first thing under threat was the Department of Youth and Community Development.
Wow.
So that's our competition.
There you
I'm
go.
worried. I'm looking behind. So we are really trying to expose young people in the employment arena to sciences. So that's, I think, the area we want to grow.
Great.
I just want to acknowledge a partner in the room of someone, a deputy commissioner from the Department of Design and Construction, which does all the capital projects. They're starting worksite for us this summer.
Great.
To expose young people to careers in engineering and architecture. And that's what we want to do, is really give young people an opportunity to explore careers they may not have considered.
And I know, William, Google's involved in the CS1 program, obviously, with DYCD. If you want to talk maybe a little bit about that for a few minutes and talk a bit about Google's other efforts, perhaps, in this space.
Well, Bill mentioned it earlier at the beginning of his opening speech about the challenge that we face. So if we do want to grow, broaden, and deepen the tech talent that's here in the city, we're going to have to start doing things differently, right? So we're going to have to address the inspiration gap that was mentioned earlier on, which I think in part has to do with curriculum, and we developed CS First as a way to try to bridge the inspiration gap. There's also a challenge to scale in just skills, and not just on the student side. Actually, I would say it's less on the student side and more on the teacher side, which is why I think experiments like the ones that DYCD is doing with the New York Academy of Science, where they're employing doctoral students to go out there and teach this curriculum, is critically important, because not too surprisingly, kids are not the only ones who are intimidated by technology or computer science. The teachers are as well, and whether or not they want to teach it, if they're scared of it, they're going to communicate that fear. So that has a ripple effect further down the tech talent pipeline. And then the other challenge is persistence. So a colleague of mine actually, I thought, cutely quipped, the pipeline, we don't have just a problem, at the beginning or at the end. We have a problem throughout. The pipeline is leaky. And Bill just actually told, I thought, a brilliant story that, to me, illustrates the point. So not to out him here, but, Bill studied math and went through to Brooklyn Tech and was fairly good.
Aeronautical engineering. I mean,
But math.
those of you old enough remember Neil Armstrong landing on the moon. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer.
But you went through middle school and high school with this passion, and I assume a certain amount of talent, and then all of a sudden decided that it was not for you.
I hated math. And I'm telling you, for an Asian family, that was a big letdown. I can say that.
That's absolute heresy. and I as well, because I loved math in middle school, loved math in high school, went to college, and then realized, oh, I hated math. But you know what it is? I actually didn't hate math. I just hated how it was being taught at that particular point, and I kind of felt that it was beyond me. So if you don't have certain interventions built in along the pipeline to catch those students, particularly girls or black and brown students, if you don't have places where you have support built in to help them along to say, actually, you are good in math, and you actually are very good in, algebra, you're going to lose all of that good investment that you place, early into the pipeline. So, but to talk about that specifically, at Google, we're critically, focused on STEM, but particularly computer science. And what we have found is if we want our business to continue to grow, we have to go further and further upstream to inspire students to go into our field. We've been doing a little research, and what we find is there are actually a lot of kids who are interested in going into STEM. But, particularly the students we're looking for, we're looking for more women, we're looking for more computer scientists of color. Those students at 5th, 6th grade, they start sorting themselves out. They think, like you did, they think, oh, I'm not particularly good at this, so I'm going to go into a different science field. Or, I don't look like, the computer scientist. I don't look like Steve Jobs. I don't look like Larry Page. So I should probably go into a field that's more conducive for me. And that's a problem for us. So we try to build certain interventions, particularly curriculum, that tries to negate that. So with CS First, CS First is I kind of call it like a gateway drug for computer science. but the idea is similar. We want kids to start building up their skills, but more importantly, building up their self-confidence about, I can do this. And we do it in a couple of interesting ways. So, we understand that kids have different interests, so we've built projects that are keyed to those interests. So if you go to the CS First website and look at the curriculum, you'll see that there are projects dedicated to music. There are projects dedicated to game design. There are projects dedicated to art and design. And we did that with a purpose. We want the kids to find this fun. We want them to find it engaging. And then along the way, they figure out, oh, actually, I just coded this really great game. I can do this. And for us, that's critically important, that you need those interventions that build confidence and inspiration in kids, particularly kids of color, at a very early age. The other thing I'll just throw in there, and this actually is a good segue for Arva and Tiana, is it's not, our research has shown, it's not even so important that you get the curriculum or the technology in front of them. What we find is you need the parental support. And any program that helps parents help bolster their children in their pursuit of STEM is critically important. It's the most determinative thing that you can find in whether or not a student will go into science or technology.
Arva, I love the big picture perspective that you brought, bringing in the Urban League's 95-year history as a civil rights organization, and the context of that, those issues for the development of this industry of STEM, and making sure that there's equal access to these jobs. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
First of all, I realized I forgot to tell you all the hashtag we're using today, which is hashtag NYULSTEM. So please go ahead and let folks know that you're part of that conversation today. So it's hashtag NYULSTEM. And the first question that you asked, Ben, was about what's exciting. And obviously, we're very excited to be launching this STEM guide in partnership with many of the folks that are here today. I should let you all know that this is the second in our series. I'm not sure if we mentioned that. Our first guide was the Parent's Guide to College. And that was designed for individuals who, when they step foot on a college campus with their young person, that may have been the first time that they ever were in that setting. And so because we realized that parents are so important to this conversation, and we were able to get out over 120,000 copies of that guide through workshops that we did throughout the city, conversations with church leaders, speaking at after-school programs, anybody who would listen, saying, here's this guide. And so that's what we plan on doing with the Parents' Guide to STEM, is rolling out this series of workshops starting in April and going out and speaking to anybody who will listen and let them know and give them opportunities to, as the commissioner said, to not only explore science, technology, engineering, and math, but to explore how everything that they do in their daily lives are touched by STEM solutions, right? And so that STEM becomes not some faraway, distant sort of thing that folks do in a lab coat somewhere, but that it is, STEM is part of the solution to figuring out how do you find out what the weather was today, right? It's, the phone call that I just got from my mom, who forgot that I was doing this STEM panel this morning. I was like, Mommy, don't call me right now. But it's definitely an everyday part of the work that we're doing. And so we're excited about being able to roll out this guide in conjunction with conversations, and being able to bring the essential partners, the corporate community, government, working directly with parents in order to help this guide to become a success.
Great. And Tiana, do you want to talk a little bit about the specifics of the education programs that you're working on?
Sure. We'll definitely highlight the next academy that I'm not sure if you all hear me. It's a charge that the Urban League has actually taken on for the... We can get a little close. We're family. It's a charge that we've taken on in the past 2 years, and this will actually be our third year of providing this program to the community, and we feel very strongly about it. It's, as William was mentioning, there is a huge parent piece that we focus on, and it's, again, making sure that the parents feel supported with their children taking this journey. We focus on 8th grade students who are actually going into high school, because it's an opportunity for them to decide when they're in high school what they want to focus on. If they're interested in focusing on technology, engineering, math, or science specifically, it gives them a taste of what is expected, and then hopefully get them excited about what they can actually do in high school and beyond. So it's a great opportunity for us to catch students at a crucial time for them as they move on to a new chapter in their life. And it's two tracks to this particular program. We have our student track, which is broken up into a female cohort and a male cohort, and it gives the students an opportunity to learn in a group setting, learning how to code using Java, and then also get exposure to career opportunities. We actually take them on site visits to companies like Google, Time Warner, so that they can get experience and exposure to individuals who actually work at these companies and learn from their successes and their pathways, so that they can get, again, excited about what a career in STEM would look like. What does it feel? How much money do these people make? Because that's one of the number one questions they ask. And it's a good, honest question, because it lets them know, like, if this is something that I want to do, what does it look like in the future? And so we feel that there's a great opportunity for the students to actually engage with employees of these companies, to take a tour and get a real feel and look of what it may look like to be in this particular industry. And then we have speakers who come to share their personal experiences, and I value that now as a mom and as an educator over these past years, that it's very important to have that background information. You can be told by your teacher what it's supposed to look like, what you think it's going to be, but until you hear from someone who may look like you or who may have gone through the same circumstances that you did, it doesn't have the same effect, as we all know, right? We might have had that mentor or that person who told us the story, and they're like, that's really what inspired you to take the path that you took. And so we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities to our young men and young women. And it gives them, again, another enthusiastic approach to what STEM careers could look like. Our parent piece actually gives us an opportunity to support our parents. Our parents are sometimes very dedicated and very enthusiastic, but they just don't have the right information, or they may not have the right supports to provide their students. And so our parent track allows us to give parents information from people who are in the industry. We actually have speakers who come from various companies to share about their experience, but also as parents, and then also as individuals who have walked the path. So I was telling William earlier, we had a professor from John Jay, a math professor from John Jay, come to speak to our parents last year. And he spoke to our parents from his personal experience, but also as a professor. And he shared that his mom had no idea how to support him as a young man. And he took the initiative to seek out programs, to seek out opportunities and resources that would help him move forward. But he also knows now as a parent what to look for. As a professor at John Jay, what is expected from these students who are going into elementary, middle school, and high school, what's expected at the college level. So he actually prepared the parents from a personal standpoint of how to support your child at home, but then also how to support them in the school environment, what to ask the teachers, what the curriculum should look like. And so I think these conversations are invaluable, and they give parents not only the support, but the information and education necessary so they can support their children moving forward. So that's one of the major things that we're working on, and I feel very passionate about STEM in our next academy, and we're definitely looking to grow our program as we do every year. And we've also, because of the STEM guide and everyone being so excited about it, we've actually had some people call us about participating in the next academy already, which we actually haven't had applications out yet, but it's a good feeling, and it's great to know that people are very much engaged and interested in pursuing it.
Thank you. That's interesting. There's a lot of interesting things in there. And Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about the most exciting STEM stuff that you're working on in the Department of Education, where you guys have any number of STEM programs?
There's a wide variety of STEM work going on across the department. The Office of Post-Secondary Readiness works with our career and technical education schools. So we have over 100,000 students in 120 schools working on career and technical education programs that we talked a little bit about earlier, really connecting the academics that students are working on to specific career fields. A lot of them are in the STEM area, anywhere from software, hardware, through culinary arts, and the wide range of STEM work. Specifically, I oversee a program called the Software Engineering Pilot, where we've been looking at a lot of the issues that we've talked about today in terms of coding and computer science, and how do we really bridge the gap in our STEM fields in higher ed and in the corporate world in terms of Black and Latino students and girls entering the field. And so SEP, as we call it, is in 9 middle and 9 high schools. It's designed to be a 3-year sequence for kids in middle schools and a 4-year sequence in high school, so it goes really deep. Unlike some of our career and technical education high schools that students opt into, most of these are regular, traditional middle and high schools. And so I think we've been able to get a higher percentage specifically of girls who don't necessarily opt into a tech school. They don't see themselves as fitting in there, but if they're in a traditional middle or high school, then they have the opportunity to try something inside their school. And so we have, right now, we're in our 2nd year, so we're serving grades 6 and 7, 9 and 10, and we have 2,600 students enrolled in the SEP classes. 40% of them are girls, and 55% of them are Black and Latino, so we're getting closer to representation appropriate with the city. But it's really a hands-on, minds-on curriculum where students are learning everything from physical computing up through advanced programming languages, Python, processing, Java. And the goal is really to help students understand both the concepts, but understand how they can apply those concepts to real-world problems. And they do it in real-world ways, so we do a lot of paired programming, the way that it would happen in the tech industry, so they could experience failure. They try things, they fail, they try again. That's sort of a key concept that happens in the real world and also needs to happen in our schools, and for students to be able to persist through failure, be comfortable with failure, figure out how to try something else if it didn't work the first time. And the key to the program is really what we do is teacher training. So we are working with teachers who teach everything: science, math, art, English, social studies. There is no computer science education license in New York State. Teachers are not trained to be computer science educators, so we really need to teach them the content and the pedagogy of computer science education. So we're working with teachers. We have 100 hours of PD over the year. Our teachers are spending 1 Saturday a month with us. That's a lot. Plus a week in the summer. To become computer science educators in a way that they weren't trained to be. And so it's been a really interesting experience helping educators learn something else and become proficient and comfortable, as William mentioned earlier. But we're also connecting students to the access to things that they may not have had access to, hackathons. We had one of our hackathon winners got invited to the White House for the Hour of Code a group of middle school students from Brooklyn, which was fantastic. We're experiencing them to internships and mentorships at local companies. If anybody wants to host interns or mentors, I've got students for you. We have summer creative programs so students can really get hands-on and fun and creative and build things in a way that they might not get to do in their classroom setting. We've also brought girls from 12 schools to meet with female executives and female engineers from Google, from Facebook, AOL, Huffington Post, AT&T, to really see themselves out in the companies. It's not just that there aren't opportunities for girls and Black and Latino students in higher ed, but they don't see themselves as fitting in there. So we're going to try to bring them to see people who've either gone through experiences like they've experienced or can help sort of smooth the path for them. And we're building some of those path smoothers. But the older kids in the program are starting to recruit the younger kids into the program. So we have some of the high school students who give tours for prospective students. They come here and do this program inside our school. This is where you want to be, and they can see their near peers and engage them. So that's been really exciting. We're hopefully continuing to grow the program through 8th, 11th, and 12th grade, and then to see how we can expand what we've learned beyond. One quick exciting thing that we're doing, as part of this, we're launching an AP course for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders for STEP schools and other schools in partnership with the Education Development Corporation up in Boston and University of California, Berkeley. We are adapting a University of California, Berkeley course, which is a computer science course for non-computer science majors, adapting it to an AP CS Principles curriculum. The AP is creating a new exam for computer science principles, which will launch in spring of 17. And it's really about the concepts of computer science rather than any specific language, since the programming language has changed so frequently. I'm really hoping that what we're doing is smoothing the path for students, especially in higher ed, where those introductory computer science courses at many universities are sort of weed-out courses. If you can stick it out, then you can maybe become a major. And this way, it's giving our students, particularly girls and particularly Black and Latino students, a leg up in higher ed computer science.
Thanks. So there's a variety of stakeholders, I think, who are all making really great efforts to grow the STEM pipeline, get more people involved in STEM, and also to increase diversity in the field. From the education department, K-12, the after-school programs, the corporate world. We heard from Jay earlier about CUNY's great work. But the challenges remain in terms of getting a mix of people involved, of students involved. And Arva, I was wondering if you could address some of the specific obstacles that African American and Hispanic kids might face, and girls, when it comes to getting involved in these fields.
And I think that I'm definitely piggybacking on what we were just saying about creating opportunities for girls and for people of color to see themselves in those roles, right? So to be able to go to a place like Google and see William and say, wait a minute, I can grow up and be him, right? And so I think that our young people, unfortunately, don't have as many role models. They don't have an uncle, a cousin who's in this field. In some ways, we are trying to create opportunities for our young people to be in positions that are not even imagined yet, right? Some of the job postings, some of the descriptions that we're talking about, we never would have thought about, right? It's almost like Jetsons in some way come to life. And so that's why it's so important, we feel, to work with parents, because, we're the ones who are intimidated by it, right? So the millennials are fine, but it's the folks that are older. And so I think that there's the specific obstacles are around role models, right? It's about being able to see themselves in those positions. I was thrilled to hear you talk about the AP course that you're developing, thrilled. Because I think that AP is a key piece that, unfortunately, you don't have as many AP courses in the communities and the zip codes where we have so many African American and Latino students. I know that for myself, I was, a smart kid, graduated, went to Northwestern, got there my first year, and literally had never heard of advanced placement until I got there. And so I think that my parents hadn't gone to college. We were first generation. And so I think that being able to provide that opportunity is very key as well. One of the things that we experienced also in our Next Academy is, our young people were struggling with basic, math skills.
in order to be able to access these opportunities. So I think it's about being able to encourage young people to see themselves in that place and space, having the exposure, being able to see STEM in more than just one particular way, but that it permeates every part of your lives, and for the young people to be able to see themselves as problem solvers, and that STEM is a key component of being able to solve problems.
Tiana, I wanted to ask you about the those visits to companies that young people have gone on under your programs. I don't know if you've personally been on any of them, but what's your impression of how the students react when they're visiting these places? Are these visits opening their minds and kind of showing them what's possible, or what's that moment like, that interaction like?
I just have to interrupt. I mean, awe was exactly the word that I was thinking of, because when we hosted the Next Academy at our office, the rarest of things occurred. You saw a bunch of students silent. They would just stand there and look like, oh my God! It was quite stunning.
To be fair, when grown-ups go to Google,
I was going to say the grown-ups do that too.
It's so true.
It's true. Right. Like, this is where you work, right?
Yeah. The staff an opportunity to kind of reflect back on how they were at this particular age. It gives them, they ask questions about, well, what are you doing outside of school? What are your extracurricular activities? And it just opens up the conversation. And again, some of the feedback that I've had from the host sites have been, when can we do this again? We loved your kids. They asked great questions. They put us on the spot. And we just can't believe how intelligent they were, how inquisitive they were. So it was a great opportunity. They are great opportunities, and we like to continue them, and we know that they're very powerful for the students.
William, within Google, can you tell me a little bit about what Google does to promote a diverse workforce at the company itself?
Well, this is not telling tales out of school, but as you know, our industry as a whole and our company in particular has a diversity challenge. We've seen over the past 30-some-odd years the number of women and computer scientists of color drop precipitously, and we're still trying to wrap our minds around why did that happen, and then how can we turn that around. So we've been doing a lot of really interesting experiments. CS First is one that we're doing at a fairly large scale here in New York to see if we can impact the next generation of computer scientists. But we're also doing experiments on the short term. So, for example, we are piloting a program with historically black colleges and universities here with their CS departments to figure out, how can we access more computer scientists of color. From what we're told, I would say historically black colleges generate something like 40% of the computer scientists that are out there on the market. We're only able to hire like 1 or 2%. So we thought, we need to figure out how can we be better partners with these academic institutions so that they're generating computer scientists of the caliber that we need. So that's helping them with their curriculum, and it's also in large part showing their students that our work environment is a place that is accepting of your culture, and that we are actually dedicated to diversity. So there's a Google T-shirt that says "Let your freak flag fly" or something like that. I think they actually have a day dedicated for people just to go out there and be themselves. It's important for us that we have a work environment where people can bring their genuine, true selves there, and our partnerships with historically black colleges, in part, is just to tell people that you can bring yourself to work, and it's an accepting environment.
You mentioned the CS First program, which you're working on with Bill in the Department of Youth and Community Development. This program is being targeted at middle schools, Bill. Why are we targeting middle school kids with this stuff?
Well, I think it's part of the city's larger strategy and why the mayor invested so much, $190 million in providing after-school programs in all middle schools that want them. It's because middle school is that point in a young person's life where they start making choices for the first time. And 7th grade, the chancellor always talks about it, is the sweet spot. That's when they start having to decide where they're going to go to high school. And if you pick the right high school, it'll make a world of difference. If you pick the wrong high school, it makes a world of difference. And so that's why we want to expose young people to the broadest range of experiences, whether it's arts, whether it's science, whether it's engineering. And that's why, building on that into the Summer Youth Employment Program, we want to, again, diversify the work experience. So last year, we had 30 young people work in the DNA crime lab at the Office of the Medical Examiner. And so we're going to replicate that this year with many other city agencies. I've reached out to the sanitation commissioner, who's interested in perhaps, and who started her career as an intern at the sanitation department. So she got it right away about placing young people in maybe the recycling and waste management divisions of. So I think the more we can expose young people to possibilities, because many of the young people enrolled in our programs come from low-income communities. I think we take for granted, if you come from a middle-class background, certain opportunities that many young people don't have. And so I think we want to replicate the opportunities that middle-class parents have for low-income parents.
Fair enough.
Our research has shown the same thing that Bill just illustrated and that the mayor espoused when he first came in, which is middle school is a critical point for students just in general. So they in general need support, but for this particular piece, for STEM and particularly for computer science, that inflection point is really important. It's that year, somewhere between 5th and 6th or 6th and 7th grade, that kids make the decision like, oh, I'm not good in math. I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go this route, or I'm going to go to this particular high school versus another school. So it's really, really important to try to figure out how do you turn that around, which is actually why I like Debbie's SEP program, because what it does is actually brings software engineering, to the school, as opposed to having the kid choose like, oh, I'm going to go to that technical school. It actually prevents them from self-sorting out.
Yeah, I agree. I wanted to ask Debbie about that because I wrote about that program when it was launched, and you've written about it a few times. I never had quite, I guess, come to the realization that part of the point of the reason of the way that it was being rolled out that way was to allow kids to kind of dip their toe in the topic and see if they like it without committing to a full, high school, 4-year experience in the field. And you said, Debbie, that program is already seeing some success in terms of getting more girls and kids of color involved relative to some of the education department's other STEM programs, which have, last time I checked, had slightly fewer kids of color and fewer girls compared to boys in these programs. So why do you think that the SEP programs are achieving a better mix of students, a more diverse mix of students, and how do you think we could translate or transfer apply some of those lessons to other aspects of the education department's work in STEM?
I think part of we designed it to be in schools that students opted into for the general reason they would choose a middle or high school wherever they're located, and we're in all 5 boroughs. And so I think just organically we have a different population of students to work with. I think creating new schools like P-TECH and new schools like AFSCE and BASE are really exciting and show what a model of a whole school focused in this area can look like. But we need a mix of both because students have a variety of reasons that they choose a high school or choose a middle school, and we need to sort of have a variety of options for them to look at. And so we've been really excited at looking at programs within existing schools, specifically in SEP, and I think that's something we can continue to do as we look at building out other STEM work. I also think the intersection between that in school and out of school, because there's only so much time in the day. All schools have to make these choices. Are they going to go deep in computer science? Are they going to go deep in the arts? They can't actually do everything at once. They can pick and choose a few things that they're going to focus on. And so what's been interesting about SEP is we've been able to do a lot of deep in-school work, but have all of these partnerships to also be bringing folks outside. We've done that through a lot of private funding. So we're, partially publicly funding the program, but also working with CSNYC has been a great partner, AOL, AT&T. There's been a lot of interest from outside to help us bring those kids out of the school. And so I think continuing to build those partnerships is really crucial. And I think the other thing is letting schools see what each other's doing. So by bringing these teachers together every Saturday, they now have a community. 18 schools, 40 teachers have a community where they are constantly, they really teach professional development at this point. So they are sharing what they tried in one thing, what worked, what didn't work, bringing together groups of teachers who are trying similar stuff, sharing the assessments that they're using. Huge challenge in computer science ed without it being a formal field is how do you know it's working? What are we looking for? How are we assessing the student work to know that we're making real gains toward high-level computer science? So having them share and see each other's stuff, sometimes visit each other's schools when they can, those collaborative partnerships, and I think one of the great things that the Chancellor's done has built a whole host of collaborative structures for schools to visit each other. So being able to see, oh wow, this amazing science work, or wow, this urban garden that this one school has done, we can now actually learn from them and bring it to our school. I think those are ways we can help spread things across schools.
Thank you.
I just wanted to piggyback on one thing that Debbie said, which I think is also important. As you said, it's hard to impact the school day, the learning day, right? There's just a lot going on. So you really have to get at it from a lot of angles, which is one of the reasons why we developed our program as an after-school model, knowing that trying to change or innovate the learning day, that's hard for anything, STEM or un-STEM related, or not STEM related. So you do have to figure out different opportunities or different venues to teach kids and expose kids to science, technology, engineering, and math.
Thanks for sharing that, William. That's an interesting perspective. I think we're out of time for the panel. I'd like to thank all the panelists so much for engaging in this conversation, and thank you all for paying attention. Bill Holliber, the president and CEO of the Daily News and the New York Urban League board chairman, is going to give some talks.
The only thing standing between getting to the cold is me. So that means I have a lot of time to talk. And I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards, not accepting an Oscar, but I have a lot of people to thank. And I do want to end on something, because as a few people that do know me, I always like to understand what the next steps are going to be and who's going to help us. And I have a big ask at the end of this. So, we've talked about diversity, the importance of that, low-income families, and the opportunity. And I'll come back to that in a moment. We did a poll, online poll, basically aimed at parents in New York City, how important is parental support in all these efforts. And the response was that 87% of the parents that responded said very important or most important factor. So we can't really forget that the parents play such a significant role. And for all of us that have had parents that participated in our education, for good and bad, a lot of us wouldn't be here today without them. And I think in the STEM effort, it's really critical. For the folks that I want to thank, there's a whole bunch of people. Obviously, the New York Urban League, Arva Rice and her staff have done an incredible job of taking a leadership role in communicating and having programs in the STEM field. The Daily News, Ben, thank you for helping us communicate to New York City folks about what's going on in education in New York, and especially the STEM fields. We've had that commitment for the past few years. U.S. News and World Report that runs the only national STEM conference. We're going to our 4th year. And for Margie Mannix, who's here, who runs the executive editor, who runs the curriculum for that conference, but also was the person and her team that put together the Parents Guide. And we are going to be doing a national guide for parents around the country. That's several major corporations are going to be involved with us on that. Of course, community and our partnership, it's multifaceted, and Jay has been an incredible asset to the city, not only for CUNY, but for every nook and cranny in the borough that is helping children reach a higher level of education in the city. The New York City Department of Education, I think it's been great. We partnered on the Parents Guide to College, and now this, which is very exciting. Our new partnership with Bill and the Department of Youth and Community Development, a big opportunity to reach the parents of younger children to help shape their thinking. And of course, Time Warner Cable, the Henry Luce Foundation, Google, Tide Foundation, News Corps. Yes, I am allowed to say News Corps. L'Oreal USA, the New York City Council member Inez Dinkins was very involved in helping us out. In addition, we had a wide group of people collaborating on this, and everybody got along really well. At least that's what I saw, but I'm not sure what happened in every meeting. But Windmere Communications, they did a great effort in helping put together the PR and the strategy behind this, along with High 10 Media, and assisting in today's events. So thank you very much for everybody for that. And of course, I want to thank the panelists. I learned a lot today, and appreciate all the time you've given us. While it's a small group here, we have the power of communication behind us, and we're very fortunate to be able to have the guidebook. And the other thing we have here in the city is we have one of the largest diverse communities in the country. We also have one of the largest lower income groups in the country, or whether it be the Latino community or the African American community. But with that, we also have a potential huge workforce ready to come into the fields of STEM. And I think what I'm hoping is that with your support, you have the ability to distribute the guidebook. And if we could ask, if anything, anybody here in the panel or anybody in the audience, we have 100,000 copies to spread out. I hope I get a call that says we need to go back on press and produce more. But it's a good guide. There are examples of good role model profiles that we talked about. There is a lot of good information about your own organizations, departments, and how people get involved, and the wide variety of groups that are available out there for people, young people, to experience what it's like to have a STEM career. And most importantly, we want to make it easy for parents to feel comfortable helping navigate their children. So if you could get online, hopefully, and put your order in. We have a lot of boxes to unload, and I hope that we can distribute that information out throughout the year. But thank you very much for all your time, and thank you for spending the time with us today. Oh.